Welcome back. You're watching Business Lunch. Now, Reserve Bank of India's much-awaited natural interest rate for India is finally out, and it places India's natural rate currently at 1.4 to 1.9%. Now, the natural rate is a real interest rate. It is calculated as nominal interest rate minus the inflation. Economists define natural rate as that real rate that which growth is at potential and inflation is at target. Latha Venkatesh will explain all of this and the impact of these numbers. Latha.
Well, the natural real rate of interest, which the Reserve Bank has in mind, was something economists were very much waiting for, and that was announced in the July bulletin, the 1.4 to 1.9%. Now, what is this natural rate of interest? First, we should know that it is a real rate of interest. What is real interest? Suppose you're getting 7% in a bank. Okay, 100 rupees becomes 107 at the end of the year. But inflation is 5%. That is eating away 5 rupees. So what is your real interest? It's only 2 rupees or 2 percentage points. Now, that is the real rate. What is the natural real rate? It is that rate in the central bank's mind or in the central bank's estimation at which the economy is growing as per its potential and inflation is at the target. In India's case, inflation should be at 4%. Now, in India, at the moment, what is the actual real rate? The actual real rate is repo rate, 6.5%, minus 1 year inflation of Reserve Bank, that is forecast at 4.5%. So 6.5 minus 4.5, the current real rate is 2 percentage points. And what is Reserve Bank telling us? That the correct natural rate should be 1.4 to 1.9. Which means the Reserve Bank's policy is tighter than the ideal rate. Why is it tighter? Because inflation is not at target. Inflation, last number we have is 5.08, whereas the target is 4. So the Reserve Bank has kept it tight. When does Reserve Bank or any central bank move the interest rate below the natural rate? When inflation is below or growth is below target, right? That's the meaning of the natural rate. The other thing that Reserve Bank tells us in the important bulletin paper is what is India's potential rate? What do you mean by saying the growth is at potential? They are saying that they have calculated that for the fourth quarter, that Jan-Feb-March quarter, which just went by, the potential output growth is 7%. And for the moment, currently, the potential growth of India is between 5.9 and 8.3. Not very useful. It's a very wide band, but that's because there are a lot of uncertainties. Not much is explained in the paper about this band, but the Reserve Bank gives a lot of explanation why even the natural real rate is a big band, 1.4 to 1.9. Why such a big band? They say that there are various ways to calculate. The paper itself gives 4 models, filtering as well as, historical way of calculating, Taylor rule, various ways. So by one rule, you get 1.4. By one rule, you get 1.9%. The key point is that, you have to balance. Ultimately, this is a theoretical construct, and the Reserve Bank has to use its discretion. They also point out that the natural rate depends on even statistical estimation, which can only be approximate. For instance, during the COVID period, that is the third quarter of FY22, October, November, December of 2021, the real rate, the natural rate was fixed at 0.8 to 1%. But now that has been up to 1.2. Why? Because on hindsight, we found that the GDP at that time was not so bad. It has been, the forecast has been revised upward. So because of all these uncertainties and statistical issues, the natural real rate tends to be a wide band. And then, of course, the paper goes on to explain how do you arrive at the natural rate? What are the factors, drivers that influence the natural rate of interest? It depends on many things. It depends on the saving investment trends. It also depends on how the demography is. If it's a young demography like us, people tend to save more, invest more. That pushes up the natural rate. There are also other factors like now there will have to be climate investment, green transition. There will also be investments because of AI. All that also pushes up the natural rate of interest. The important point is that we will now keep using this natural rate of interest. You will hear it many times every time the monetary policy of the Reserve Bank is assessed.
Okay, that is so interesting, and it's like an economics lecture. Latha, thank you so much for joining us and making sense of what the report says. With that, we'll take a short break for now. But up next, flights, airports and stock exchanges across the globe and in India report outages. We'll tell you more on this after this short break. Stay tuned.